Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. The mood on the streets of Saudi Arabia's capital Friday was one of deep sorrow as prayers for King Abdullah were said in mosques across the nation following his death. King Abdullah was carried in a simple white shroud into a mosque in Riyadh today, in keeping with ascetic traditions. Worshippers knelt for traditional prayers as the Imam announced the succession. King Abdullah's brother Salman takes the throne, with his half-brother Maureen as the heir and nephew Mohammed bin Nayef as deputy crown prince. In the kingdom's strict Wahhabi sect of Sunni Islam, ostentatious displays of grief are frowned upon after previous deaths of Saudi monarchs and other top royals. There was no official period of mourning and flags were at full mast. King Abdullah's body was later carried by male relatives to the cemetery and he was buried in an unmarked grave. Now, even as new Saudi King Salman pledged on Friday to maintain existing energy and foreign policies, condolences for King Abdullah continue to pour in from around the world. King Abdullah, a longtime U.S. ally in the fight against terrorism and Islamic extremism, died Thursday. He was believed to have been 90 years old and had been ill for a long while. U.S. President Barack Obama offered his personal condolences and the sympathies of the American people to the Saudi people and royal family. Former Israeli President Shimon Peres remembers him as a strong leader.
I admired his position. I think it has influenced many people all around the places. And I do hope that his legacy, as well as his proposal, will remain as a good memory for his long serving his own people and for a long trying, an important one, to bring peace to the Middle East.
The head of the International Monetary Fund says she admired the late king's accomplishments beyond his economic reforms.
Very often Saudi Arabia is portrayed as a place where women do not play quite the same role, but His Majesty was determined to actually change gradually the situation.
The late king's half-brother, Prince Salman, is the new Saudi leader. In an address to the nation on state television Friday, he pledged to keep the Quran as a centerpiece of legislation and continue the policies of his predecessor. World oil prices jumped in an immediate reaction as news of Abdullah's death added to some uncertainty in energy markets. Well, for more perspective on the death of Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah, we are joined by VOA correspondent Sharon Behn. Sharon, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Now, from what we have heard, the messages coming in indicate that this was a man who was fairly admired. In fact, including a former Israeli President Shimon Peres. It says he's a person he admired a lot. What was so distinctive about him?
I think he was seen as a very strong leader who managed to keep Saudi Arabia united and had forged very strong policies. Just this morning, Secretary of State John Kerry, he described him as a brave partner in countering terrorism and extremism, and he has been a very strong ally. He had been a very strong ally of the United States, especially in countering groups like the Islamic State or Daesh, which is operating in Syria and Iraq. And as a matter of fact, Saudi Arabia is a member of the coalition that's conducting airstrikes against that terrorist group. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody really admired him. The United States definitely saw them as a very strong partner. And now we're going to have to see how things evolve with the new king, King Salman.
Yes, and he didn't shy away from even, although it didn't seem to be very open, that actually he encouraged the U.S. to hit back at Iran so that Iran does not spread and become this very dangerous.
The former king.
The former king,
I think that the former king, Saudi Arabia is in sometimes a difficult position in world politics. It has several competing influences that are competing for the same kind of influence that Saudi holds. Yeah. So they have, as far as destabilizing influences, there's Islamic State on one side, they've got Al-Qaeda in Yemen on the other side, and you've got Iran, which is a competing influence in the Muslim world, being a very strong Shia power, Saudi being more of a Sunni power. So I think they've been navigating those very difficult waters for a while now. And the situation that's developing in Yemen, where you have Houthi rebels who are close to Iran have now taken over the city and taken over the country, basically. That's going to be another challenge coming up for the new leader in Saudi. Yes, it is.
But even internally, this is a man who was seen as a maverick, broke with tradition in this country. He gave women certain freedoms that perhaps no other previous king did.
He did. I think he was seen as moving maybe a little, slowly but steadily towards giving women some rights, and that's always been a concern for at least the United States, that women have rights. But whether that path is going to be continued by the King Salman is something we don't know yet. Although he has said that he intends to stay pretty much along the same lines as his half brother.
But of course, this is not to say that Saudi Arabia at any point became such a country with freedom of speech and where people enjoy those kind of freedoms that we may enjoy in this country.
That is true. I think we're still quite, there are big differences or large differences between what the United States and the West would consider the correct amount of freedom of speech and what Saudi considers that.
Still considered a great ally of the U.S. Yes. Sharon, thank you very much for your insights.
Much.
Well, Sharon Behn of the Voice of America joined us today here.